Now, I just want to preface this review by saying we didn't have much time to film, so apologies if it's not up to the usual standard. Also, massive thanks to the owner for letting us have a go in his pride and joy. Anyway, the 2023 BMW M4 competition with Xdrive. When these came out, people were umming and ahhing about the looks, and honestly, so was I. However, after digesting the aggressive design language, I actually kind of appreciate that BMW went to some length distinguishing this thing from the regular 4 Series. Whilst we're on the subject of aggression, this new M4 is said to be more livable than ever. The thing is though, it's an M car, so does that mean they've turned down the wick? Absolutely bloody not. Let's get into it. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. We're on TikTok, so if you want to see weekly updates, behind the scenes footage, and some funny stuff, click the link in the description below to follow us now. So yes, technically this new M4 is more livable than the old car, and we'll get on to why in a minute, but first let's talk about that engine. Oh, that glorious engine. This is the S58 inline 6. It has 510 horsepower and 650 Nm of torque, and coupled with BMW's Xdrive system, it is an absolute beast. 0 to 60 in the mid to low 3-second range and a top speed of and find out. Where does it sit on our 30 to 70 leaderboard though? Let's find out. Well, no surprises there then. This thing is closer to the BMW M5 competition and Mercedes E63S than it is to its actual competitors. It managed a staggering 2.99 seconds, and when you consider it weighs 1.8 tonnes, only 100 kg less than the M5 mind you, it becomes apparent that there's no way this thing only has 510 horsepower. I think BMW are talking about wheel horsepower instead of horsepower at the crank. Anyway, livability. How is it easier to get along with when compared to the previous gen car? Well, firstly, there's the gearbox. This is now the ZF 8-speed torque converter instead of the racy dual clutch that you had in the old M4. And whilst it'll be smoother, it does worry me that it'll take away some of that aggressive character that I loved in the previous car. I suppose we'll have to find out later. Anyway, there's also the torque curve of the engine. Instead of the torque coming in like a jackhammer, BMW have mapped the engine to only give you full boost at 2,750 RPM, which for a modern car is very high up the RPM band indeed. Then of course there's the interior. This is the facelifted M4, so you get the curved iDrive 8 display that'll do just about everything, including rating how good you are at drifting. It's a very impressive looking thing, and I'm glad they kept the scroll wheel, but the lack of physical climate controls is a bit of a bummer for me. After a while you'd get used to it, but I do love me a fancy looking HVAC system. The other thing that I love is that BMW allowed owners to spec actual colours for the interior without having to spend exorbitant amounts of money. This one is in orange, and do you know what? I actually really like it. It's what I'd call Terry's chocolate orange spec. Then there's the rear. Legroom is what I'd call okay at best, and likewise is the headroom. I have to say, compared to its competitors though, it is miles ahead still. Anyway, enough waffle, let's get driving. Okay, so in the M4 competition, and the very latest one with iDrive 8, which is nice. We don't have a lot of time today, unfortunately. I've got about an hour to review this thing, but I will try my best. The owner also said, please don't drift it, which is fair enough. But we can still get a good impression of how this car handles. Now, in the M3 review, I was kind of concerned that, you know, putting the torque converter in this and refining the engine a bit. Obviously, we've got the newer S58 motor, would make it a bit subdued. If you want to go and see that M3 competition review, I'll put a link in the top right hand corner. But thankfully, that is not the case. The second you get in this thing, you're very low slung in your seat. These aren't even the bucket seats and they still feel very buckety. Suspension, even in comfort mode, is still pretty firm. Steering is sharp, actually better than the old car, even though this is the Xdrive M4. And yeah, it still feels like a proper M car, so don't worry about that. But the way the power comes in is nice. Torque comes in a lot later because it's been programmed to. And yeah, it does make sense. Already, just driving it around town, you can feel that it's just a bit smoother, a bit less jerky, and the gearbox, oh, yeah, I mean, I'll see how fast the shifts are later. I'm guessing it's going to take away a bit of that snappiness, but I mean, for the sake of being smooth around town, it is a lot more drivable than the old car already. Just commuting in this thing would be so much easier. In terms of comfort, fairly similar. Obviously, you've got a very new interior. I love this spec, black with orange. It looks so good, doesn't it? And then parking this thing, visibility isn't quite as good as the old car. You've got a bit more crash protection. So all these newer cars these days, they just get a bit thicker, a bit more bulbous in every direction. Oh, there we go, there's reverse. But you've got a really high quality reverse camera, you've got parking sensors all round, you've got a overhead camera as well, and it just makes parking a lot easier, really. You've got that reverse assistant thing, but yeah, getting into a space in one go is very easy, even if you do park like me, like a BMW driver. And then getting out, you've got fairly long doors, but it's not too big, this car. So yeah, for round town, it's all right actually. But the biggest difference compared to the old car is just the smoothness. I'm just hoping that it doesn't take away from any of the aggressive character later. Anyway, half throttle coming out of a junction. Obviously, you've got Xdrive, so I mean, it just goes basically. If you've seen any drag races with this car, you know it's just utterly rapid. Is the way I'd describe it. Even for 510 horsepower, this car is fast. And remember, this is a pretty heavy thing. You know, we're talking about 1.8 tons, which does affect the fuel economy. Now, BMW say this will do 28 miles per gallon on the combined cycle, which is already disastrous. On the motorway, you might get about 35. So we're going to do a short test on the motorway, a little bit shorter than we usually do, just because of time constraints. But I'm going to reset our MPG, and then as long as we get around 28 miles per gallon, that's all right. Now, the owner said he doesn't really drive this thing hard a lot because he just doesn't get the chance to. And he's getting like 260 miles to a tank of fuel, which is actually pretty decent. That's for £70 worth of fuel, by the way, which is very decent, especially like even if you're driving it on the motorway, that's not that bad. It's certainly better than the older M3. One thing I'm noticing straight away though is the brakes are unbelievably responsive. Now, for the first time in the new BMW M cars, they've gone with a brake system that you can adapt. So you've got a comfort and a sports mode. And, you know, I think if the brakes are just good and have been calibrated well from factory, you don't need that. But I am open to new ideas, so I'm going to see what this is like. M1 is everything in sports apart from the gearbox, and the suspension is just in sports. This is what the owner says is his daily driving setting, which I can understand as it's not too aggressive, but you still get M-car noise basically. Sorry about all the rattling, by the way, I've got loads of stuff in the car. Then M2 is just full sports, but MDM is still on, as he doesn't want me to slide it around. But anyway, let's get to the roundabout and have a quick taste of the handling. Okay, I'm going to go for M1 first, as I kind of want to see what the car's like in a halfway house setting, if you will. So gearbox is still doing all the shifting for me, not in its most aggressive setting as of yet. Let's see what this thing is like. There's a bit of traffic today, so we do have to be a little bit careful, give people a bit of space, a lot of space apparently. This is the problem when you're driving a fast car, it just makes everyone else around you feel like they're driving too slow. Okay, already the brakes, very sharp in sports. Steering, bit, not too heavy actually, but oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not slow. That is aggressive. I'm going to do that again. Oh. Now, I can tell there's some sound coming through the speakers, but the exhaust actually sounds alright. Considering this has got all the latest emissions regulations fitted to it. Not bad. Okay, what about half throttle? Just... Whoa, my god. Okay, to put this in perspective, this is actually more aggressive than the BMW M5 competition was. If you want to see that review, I'll put a link in the top right hand corner. But yeah, it also feels not much slower than the M5, which is quite surprising. Also, another bit of perspective, this is a lot quicker than the BMW M3. And actually the downshifts from the gearbox, just in the halfway house setting, are pretty much as snappy as the dual clutch, if not a little bit quicker. I'm guessing it's just going to be the upshifts that aren't quite as fast. But the responsiveness from this engine is just insane. It really is. And you know, of course I've seen loads of reviews on this thing. And you know, you go, oh, it's fast. It's about as fast as an M5, a little bit slower. About Audi RS6, kind of quick, but it's the way down changes, the way it pulls away, its responsiveness. I mean, it's as close to electric as I think an ICE car can get. But don't worry, if you're going from an older M3 competition and are worried about this feeling a little less aggressive, it's not. If anything, it's actually more aggressive so far. Yeah, that really surprised me, just how brutal it was around that roundabout. And that's a halfway house setting. I can't imagine what it's like, you know, with MDM on and proper sliding it, you know, around the place. I can't even talk at the minute. It's just... yeah, this is seriously aggressive. Wow. Anyway, before I get carried away, back into efficient. I love it how it has an efficient setting. I don't think it really is efficient though. So far sitting at 17 miles per gallon. Interesting. Hopefully we can see at least like 27, 28 then, because I know you're not really concerned about MPG figures in a car like this. You know, no one spends upwards of £85,000 on a sports car and goes, I can't afford to fill it. It's more having to stop constantly. Like if you know, do the NC 500 in Scotland, you want to be able to know that you can go at least a couple of 100 miles before having to fill up again. But wow, my gosh. The seatbelt also pulls you into the seat very aggressively. Like, oh, there we go. I think it's a normal pre-tensioner, but the car is so aggressive that it sets it off pretty much every time you put your foot down. Okay then, coming onto the motorway. It's going to be interesting to see if this is a bit more livable than the M3 when it comes to road noise and wind noise and the like. The steering's really nice though, actually. Usually Xdrive BMWs, they have this kind of deadness in the steering. And the M5 certainly had that. The steering in that was just kind of a bit weird. Very computer game-esque. This is definitely a big improvement. But yeah, you've got so much power that in normal, you're barely going above 2,000 revs in this thing, really. Even though the torque comes in later, there's just so much of it. Even low down, still there's so much torque. I mean, this engine really is just a weapon. But yeah, if I want to change lanes, half throttle, gearbox is just amazing. And that's the speed limit. It's just so ridiculously fast. Then you whack your cruise control on, 70 miles an hour. 8 gears this time instead of 7 like the old car, because we've got the ZF8 speed. And yeah, it really is wonderful. Road noise is okay. I mean, there's still some M-car feel about it. You do get a little bit of harshness coming through into the cabin, but it's an M car. It's not, you know, it's a proper race car for the road, really. But yeah, almost no wind noise. That's really good. And the engine really settles down as well. Obviously, you're sitting at like 1500 revs at 70 miles an hour. So yeah, for a long journey, this is definitely better than the older car. And the suspension feels... It's a hard way to describe it, really. It's not that it's more settled, it's just... It feels more expensive. Like, even the old car would iron the bumps out the same. This just... It doesn't translate into the cabin as much. Yet you don't feel more removed from the road. So yeah, the dampers just feel a bit more expensive. The ride is a bit more luxurious, how about that? But you still feel connected, which is nice. Anyway, let's get onto the motorway, and I will basically just cut straight to when I'm coming off, I think, and then just see what kind of MPG we did. But already we're okay. The MPG is going up, so you never know. We might get above 30. Okay, let's do another coming onto the motorway bit. Just want to put my foot down and see what it does. Just in regular mode. Okay, let's go. And that's the speed limit. Yeah, that is ridiculously fast. I mean, honestly, this car's so capable, you can't even get anywhere near its limit on a public road. I really can't believe how quick this car is, though. I think it's supposedly an extra 60 horsepower over the old M3. It feels like quite a substantial amount more. I'm guessing that's the torque, but wow. This thing is fast. Anyway, I'll join you guys in about 10 to 15 minutes and see what kind of MPG figure we're sitting at. Okay, so we came off earlier than usual, and we're sitting at 29 MPG. So over a long journey, you might actually get about 32 to 35 miles per gallon out of this thing, which actually really isn't that bad, all things considered. Seems BMW were fairly realistic in terms of their MPG figures then. That's sitting at 70 miles an hour the whole way as well, which is pretty decent. Anyway, let's get into full attack and have some fun. Look at those gear changes in S3 now. Oh, you get a lovely rasp on the upshift. And front end grip is just crazy. Wowzers. I just can't believe how quick this thing is. It really is fast. But listen to those gear changes. That sounds good, doesn't it? Brakes, very good. Of course they are. It is an M car. Let's get the windows slightly down. See what kind of noise we can hear that's real. Those gear changes are aggressive. Got the fancy windscreen wipers as well. Let's just see how it handles around here actually. Look at that, it's just so flat. And that Xdrive system, you really feel it working. It doesn't pull you around the corner, it just makes it feel like you just have unlimited grip. This car's so aggressive, it's pulling the GoPro off my head. That mid-range torque, as soon as you're above 3,000 revs, whew, it's one of those cars that it even makes the driver feel sick. Front end grip it has. Oh, you can't even get all the way through third gear before you're at the speed limit. But look at those gear changes. It's just like bang, bang, bang. How do you do it, BMW? There is no other car that has this gearbox that shifts like that. You know, 6 years ago, if I got into this and you just said, guess what gearbox is in it, I would say there's a dual clutch gearbox in this car. There is no way this is a torque converter. Wow, you could lose your license in this thing very quickly. My goodness. It's amazing when you drive a car like this, you just know that this would do a stupid lap time on the Nürburgring, or Nordschleife, sorry. It's just so easy, that's the thing. It goes at speeds that most cars can only dream of, and it does it whilst, you know, you can be playing around with the climate control. It's just stupidly fast. And the brakes, yeah, in sports, they are more responsive. Do you need that? I mean, personally, I wouldn't bother, but you know, I actually prefer having a slightly longer travel on my brakes, because then you can really, like, especially if you're left foot braking, you can really fine tune how much braking you have, like if you want to trail brake into a corner. But yeah, it does make the car feel a bit sharper, so I'll give them that actually. These paddles are really nice as well actually. God. The thing is, performance cars are so capable these days, you'd lose your license in this so easily. All it takes is a second of you not looking at how fast you're going, and you are well above the speed limit. You know, this thing will go from 70 to 100 in the blink of an eye, and by that point, yeah, bye-bye license. Anyway, let's take this thing to a little B road and see what it's like there, see if it's a bit too wide, and see how the suspension actually deals with some bigger bumps. Okay, let's give it some. My goodness. You have to focus in this thing. Steering's nice. It's just so damn capable. Woo! Okay, suspension's firm, but not unlivable. My God. I can feel my eyes getting pushed back in my head. The brakes are fantastic. Oh, God. It's just got so much power, you don't even need to take it to the red line. Okay, will we make it to 60 before the corner? Obviously. Oh my God. I'm speechless. Whoa, when you rev this thing out, yeah. Even above 5,000 revs, this thing is stupid fast. It's like it gains another 100 horsepower. And yeah, car is wide, but not too wide. Right, now let's go for M1 and see how it differs. Suspension in its halfway house setting. Okay, halfway house time. Gearbox is doing its own thing. Let's see how clever it is. Very smooth, predictable. Yeah, the response from this gearbox and engine combined is ridiculous. I'm glad I didn't have lunch. Let me put it that way. It just takes the air out your lungs. Wow. Yeah, and need fuel already. Not surprised. But yeah, suspension in the halfway house setting is, yeah, I'd say it's about right for UK roads. I do like the full Sports Plus mode though, I have to say. Whoa. Right, I'm going to have to pull over for a minute, I think, and redigest my breakfast. And then I'll come back to you guys with a conclusion. So it's obvious that the BMW M4 of course hasn't lost any of its aggressive character. However, I was surprised at just how savagely aggressive this thing is. It's like this dual personality car. One minute it's just a regular car really, and then the next it's this savage rip your face off beast. It's kind of like having a pet tiger that you've had since it was a cub. It's lovable, predictable, and you know you can have a play with it without getting hurt too much. However, it is still a tiger, so one step out of line and it will tear you to pieces. Anyway, as always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like, and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which unfortunately doesn't actually include this BMW M4. Anyway, my name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.